Big talking point yesterday was Van der Ven offside. Now in Sweden, they have just voted not to have VAR in the league next year. And there was there was a question about how Premier League fans would feel about that being brought into the Premier League. Has it worked? Do we feel like we need it?
We say every week, it feels like there's different rules to the game every week. Every game you watch, there's a decision given that wasn't given a week before, and then you go to the next game, it's same again. It's I'm all for getting rid of VAR. I mean, with us lot in the ground, when a goal gets given, but then you've got to wait to celebrate again, or maybe not celebrate and feel gutted. And I just think it's sort of ruining the flow of football. It's becoming too stop-start.
You can't make a perfect science out of refereeing football, so do away with it. Just trust the referee. Some they'll get wrong, some they'll get right. You know, it swings and roundabouts. It's always been that way. I'm quite old. We've always lived that way. We just accept the referee's decision and that's it.
I just feel like there's too many sort of like open to interpretations with it. Like I was at the Liverpool Spurs match when that massive faux pas happened, and it's just too many silly mistakes. It's like one rule for one team, different for the other. I just think it either has to be consistent for it to stay, or just completely go, because it's just causing too many problems, too much uproar.
Hate VAR with a passion. Man United would not be going to the FA Cup final if it wasn't for VAR, because if you look at the pictures of it, he's put the VAR line, he's put the line over his toe. Right? It's disgusting that Coventry have been cheated of what will be one of the biggest days out for their fans, an absolute, money spinning event which would help secure a club like Coventry. It takes away all the emotion, and you know what, things that are missed. A man of my age anyway, my son won't know this, but one of the biggest things is arguing with your mate who supports Liverpool, supports West Ham, who supports Arsenal, going, that was clear offside. Oh no, it wasn't, having that banter, ripping each other, and those days are long gone, sitting there going, oh yeah, and they're going, oh, do you know what, actually it was offside. But
you just have to look at the decisions that have happened this season to say VAR in the current form isn't fitting the bill. It's not good enough.
What were your thoughts on the Van der Ven offside?
Well, I was right by the celebration, and I'm American, so I don't get to come to many games, but I feel like it just ruins the sport. Because the passion that I felt after he scored the goal was immense, like probably the best feeling I've ever had in a long time. It pulls the passion out of the game.
I think it's best for the game, sadly, because it makes everything as right as it can be. So I think it's more about the referees probably who should be in charge.
VAR needs to be a bit flexible. The offside in the week, and it was like literally centimetres. It's like, come on, if you had a thicker line, instead of that thin line, a thicker line, and if you're across that thicker line, offside. But if you're like able to shoe size, and it's ridiculous because it spoils the game.
I'm on the fence at the moment. I mean, it is controversial, don't get me wrong, VAR is controversial, but at the end of the day, offsides is offsides, and it's there for a reason. I'm not a fan of the whole VAR, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, if it's making the right decisions, then I feel like it has to stay.
A lot of chat there about VAR. The Swedish league have voted not to use it in the league next year. Whether the Premier League should get rid of it, it's not going to happen. We're going to bring in semi-automated offsides next year, which should help. It helped a lot in the Women's World Cup, right? And the Men's World Cup.
It got proposed last summer, didn't it?
Yeah, I have no concept of why they didn't go for it. And then the one that was the couple of fans they were talking about after the game was the Van der Ven toenail arse sort of
big old blunder offside.
Hairs on the back of your neck offside, and they took an age to decide whether it was offside.
And they showed him in Stockley Park doing it, and he was sweating. I was like, no. At one point, I think he touched the other guy's leg. He was like, help me.
That wasn't a camera meme.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about VAR then? Should we consider something like that?
Take it all out. I'm taking it all out. The only technical thing we need is goal line technology.
Okay.
Let's bring back where referees make wrong decisions. Yes, as a Liverpool fan, as any fan, you'll get decisions that don't go your way, but that's part of it. That's part of, like, the guy said it perfectly, arguing with your fans and arguing with your friends and all of that.
There was also another fan that said there's no science to this. Like, you can't just say that's the perfect way to do it. So there will always be your decision. The decision you see as a foul, I won't see as a foul, and there will be disagreements, and they will ref the game how the rule book says. And as Ben has mentioned before, not many people actually know the exact rules.
Yes.
And even referees will have their own opinions on how those rules are to be taken and understood.
I think you can improve it in multiple different ways. I think like player challenges would firstly reduce how much it impacts the amount of time spent during games. It gives like a good threshold for like what is clear and obvious. It's like, well, the players think that's clear and obvious and they're happy to waste a challenge if they're wrong. I think there needs to be some form of way that TV viewers can hear what's going on between refs, like they do in literally every other sport in the world. And that, I think that's where it pisses people off more than anything. But then I do think that to an extent, if it doesn't improve in the next like year or so, there's no it's like maybe football is just running up the wrong mountain. It worked for rugby, tennis, cricket, etc. It just doesn't work for the football scape of fans, the emotions, like the different pressure levels, because it is different to rugby and all these other sports. Like football is just under the microscope like nothing else.
100%.
And I think, and the reason it's called the beautiful game is the emotion and like the scenes when you score. 100%. So that's the argument where I'm most swayed against VAR. But I do think there is still room for it to improve. It's just at the moment we just seem to have fucking idiots.
Ange said it after the game. He said the game's not refereed on the pitch anymore.
Exactly.
He's always come out and said that he doesn't like VAR, doesn't like the way that it impacts the game. The game's not refereed on the pitch. And a good example of that is Declan Rice boots Ben Davies in the arse. The referee is two feet away from it, looking directly at it and goes, I'm not going to give it because I know that if I get it wrong, I can just go. He barely even got to the monitor. He could see it playing on the monitor, got to the line and just went, that's a penalty. It's because he already knew it was.
Sounds like a penalty. It does sound like a penalty. What you're telling me sounds like a penalty.
And look, the other thing is like scrutiny. The Mickey van der Ven offside that people are talking about.
Yeah.
There was a discussion about whether Tomiyasu moves his head into the ball and thus creates a second phase of play that Van der Ven scores from. But they don't want to scrutinise. They don't want to pull the game back that much. And really, the lino gave it onside.
And this is the thing. Like Ben's already touched on it. From day dot, they've said the kind of boundary of error that we're using is clear and obvious errors. These offsides that are millimetres are not clear and obvious. If a linesman sees it happening in front of them and goes, I reckon he could be on here, and doesn't give it on the pitch, we've discussed it before, there should be an element of doubt where they get to say, right, you stick with the on-pitch decision. Drawing lines is not a clear and obvious error.
It was exactly the same as the Coventry one last week. It was like that. It was that level of detail.
Attackers used to get the benefit of the doubt. For tight calls before video technology came in, it was, well, if the attackers managed to get in behind the defence and time is run almost perfectly,
because we wanted more goals in the game, and it's hard to score a goal and all that stuff. Look, all very relevant. I'm sure the discussion will rage on until the end of the season.
In the comments.
And the Euros, in the comments, what do you think should happen with VAR? Should we bin it? Do we need to update it? Do we need ex-players in there? What do you think needs to happen?